Pray with me as we will try to say a word for the Lord. When you enter the land of the Lord your God is giving you as a special possession. You have conquered it and settled it. Put some of the first produce from each crop you harvest into a basket and bring it to the designated place of worship. The place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored. Go to the priest in charge at that time and say to him, with this gift I acknowledge to the Lord your God that I have entered the land he swore to our ancestors he would give us. The priest will then take the basket from you and set it before the altar of the Lord your God. And this is what I want to talk about. Then you must say in the presence of the Lord your God. You got to tell the story. As you bring your offering, you got to tell the story. My ancestors, my daddy was a wandering Armenian. Went to live as a follower in Egypt.
Tell the story.
His family arrived few in number, but they later became a mighty nation, and the Egyptians oppressed them. But the idea is that when you come with your offering to the altar, tell the story.
Yes, sir.
And so since we need a subject, I just want to say, what is your story? Do you indeed have a story?
Yes, sir.
Stories are important in life. You know, we need stories. It functions important, and I learned a long time ago about, there was this guy Aesop, is this storyteller, but he used to tell fables. And fables are simple, wonderful stories, but the characters are animals. But they have wonderful lessons to teach us. Let me just tell you one. As this one wonderful story, there was a crow sitting high up in a tree with a big piece of cheese in his mouth. And the jackal came by and he was hungry. And the jackal said, "Crow, give me some of that cheese." The crow shook his head. And the jackal thought a little bit and he said, "Listen, Crow, you know what they tell me? You can sing so well. Somebody told me there ain't nobody can sing like you. You got a beautiful voice." The crow sat up a little bit. And then the jackal said, "Crow, sing me a song." And so the crow opened his mouth to start singing. The cheese fell out. The jackal got the cheese and ran away. It's a story, but a very important story. Be careful of somebody telling you how wonderful you are all the time. You might have something they want. I'm talking about stories.
That's your story. Yes, sir.
And in the stories, this is where Jewish culture and African culture really come together. We love telling stories. They tell me a young African boy asked his dad, said, "Daddy, you always tell the stories of a lion, and you always say the lion is the strongest, he's the king of the jungle." But he says every time you tell the story, the man always ends up killing the lion. And the father said, "Well, the reason for that is you just haven't heard how the lion tells the story." talking about stories.
Yeah.
It's part of our culture.
Yes, sir.
Jews know how to tell a story. You know, when the children went through the river Jordan, God says to Joshua, tell some people to take some stones and put the stones. The reason why I want you to put the stones years from now. Your children and grandchildren will ask you, well, what are these stones for? That will be an opportunity for you to tell a story. Jews love telling stories. At the feast of Passover, the mother will prepare the food with bitter herbs, unleavened bread. But just read how this ceremony is set up in the Jewish system. They say at one point in the ceremony, one of the children will stand up and ask the father of the house, but why do we eat unleavened bread and bitter herbs? Then the father will rise up, because that would be his cue. This is the time to tell the story.
Yes, sir.
He will say we were once slaves in Egypt's land.
Yes, sir.
And these bitter herbs represent the bitterness of slavery. Stories. I'm talking about stories. And so the people of God are at this fascinating time of their history. They're not slaves in Egypt's land no more, but they're not quite in Canaan yet. They're not in Egypt, but they're not quite free yet. It's that in-between time. It can be a mean, lean time, that in-between time. Not slaves anymore, but not quite in the promised land. I suppose that God is busy preparing his children to get into the promised land. Can't just go any old kind of way. You got to be ready. And so at this particular point, they get the laws. And so, and these particular laws says, when you get into the promised land, and when you plant and it grows and God blesses, you must take the first fruits.
Yes, sir.
You don't just bring any old kind of thing to God. It's got to be the first fruits. Sometimes part of the problem of the church is people want to give God just what they got left. Oh, and it's not that we're not giving, but we gonna give what we got left over. Oh, giving is you gotta give the first fruits.
My God.
See, but when you come with your basket of first fruits, the first thing I like about it, there's a certain system and order. You don't just go up to the altar. No, there's a man of God. My Bible says the priest that is in charge. You take your basket to the priest. The priest will take your basket and place it on the altar. What it says, there's a certain order in God's word. Don't just come and, sometimes people come and want to do things the way they think it should be done. No, when it comes to God's work, there's an order. You come with your basket, you give it to the priest. The priest will take it and put it on the altar. But when you give that basket to the altar, you must tell your story. I love that story. It says my My daddy was a wandering Armenian.
Yeah.
Wasn't much to him. He didn't have no history, no background. He was not from the high and falutin people. He was a wandering Armenian. He didn't have financial muscle. He did not have political class. He had no social standing. When he came to Egypt's land, they were but a few.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you got to tell the story right. Sometimes we get in beautiful churches like Mount Pisgah, drive nice cars, you got that beautiful job, and you act like you have always been there. You get so smart, so sedity, that you don't know where you came from. Oh, God has blessed me, but I understand that my daddy was a poor man. People didn't think much of him. He had no political power, had no financial status, was not classified as somebody high socially.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Reverend.
Sometimes God can bless us so that we can get so far removed from who we really are.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you got to understand the story. We were nothing. And when we came to Egypt's land, we were so few. But then God blessed us and we became many. And the Egyptians saw us as a danger. And they started oppressing us. Do you know the story? Do you understand the story? Do you indeed have a story? What is your story? I was nothing. Had nothing.
All right, Reverend.
Then it says, then the Egyptians oppressed us so. But I love the way this text says it. But when we were in trouble, we called on the God of our fathers. Yeah, this is part of the Jewish culture. No, we don't learn from God out on the street anywhere else, but we learn about God from our mamas and our papas. That's where I declare I learned how to pray. When I was a little boy, when my mama used to set us next to the bed, kneel next to the bed, boy, before you go to sleep, you gotta pray. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray that God, my soul would keep. I tell you, I learned about God from my mama. My daddy told me, son, if you trust in Him, if you lean on Him, if you depend on God, He will never let you down. So when the people came in Egypt's land and were brutally oppressed, they called on the God of their fathers. And when they called, God heard their prayers. And with a mighty hand, He brought them out. Do you know that story? Do you have a story? What indeed is your story? There's something about the black experience that identifies with the Jewish story. We were nothing. Worked on the cotton fields of the south. People didn't regard us. Killed us at whim. Our lives meant nothing. Some people say, even today, black lives don't matter like other people's lives. We are nothing sometimes. Black people know what it means. When you have a young teenage boy, that you have to have that talk to him. When you're confronted by the police on how to act. You know what it means to feel like nothing. And then all that we have at the time of depression and oppression and nothingness is to call on the Lord of our fathers. And when we call on Him, He answers. What is your story? Do you indeed have a story? Oh, I have this blessed assurance that Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. I'm an heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, and washed in His blood.